The Sports Central will go over a college football game preview and prediction on the Week 3 matchup between the Miami Hurricanes and the Texas A&M Aggies. Huge matchup for both these teams coming up here in Week 3. We got Miami's coming off of 2 straight dominant wins. They're 2-0, ranked 13th in the nation, and they got their first big test of the season going on the road to College Station to take on Texas A&M, a team that just took a brutal loss to App State in Week 2. They lost the game 17-14, and Texas A&M is still a very talented team, so they got something to prove here and definitely a chance for redemption here for the Aggies coming up here in Week 3. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Miami beat Southern Miss 30-7 in Week 2, so overall a solid win for the Hurricanes. They're 2-0 and once again ranked 13th in the nation. Texas A&M on the flip side took once again just a brutal loss to App State 17-14. Kind of a confusing loss as well for Texas A&M. I mean, considering this team has got so much talent, they got so much potential. They had the top recruiting class of the past offseason. And so, I mean, for Texas A&M to be 1-1 right now is definitely not the situation they want to be in, that's for sure. But they're ranked 24th heading into this matchup. And, I mean, this is a chance of redemption for sure for the Aggies here going up against a talented Miami team, that's for sure. Games will be on Saturday, September 17th in College Station. Your kickoff is 8 p.m. Central. So, this game is a night game here for Texas A&M, and obviously the Aggies have done, they pulled off some big upsets in the past in College Station, especially in a nighttime setting. So Texas A&M does have that advantage. Spread's currently favoring them by 6. The Aggies are favored by 6 here. That is the opening spreads that could change over the course of the week. Over unders 48.5, and your FPI is going Miami. You're 53.6%. So it's kind of one of the rare occasions where the FPI and the spread disagree with each other. The FPI going with Miami and the spread going with Texas A&M here. Series history, Miami leads at 2-1. They've won the last 2 matchups, and the last game was in 2008. Here's a stat comparison for this matchup. Miami 50 points per game so far this season, 10 points allowed, 279 pass yards a game, 239 rush yards. And then for yards allowed, 228 for passing, 63 for rushing. So Miami overall has been a pretty balanced offense. They've done just fine in the rushing game. Of course, with Henry Parrish Jr., he's done fairly well so far this season with over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. And of course, defensively, they've been really good in the rushing defense so far this season. As for Texas A&M, 22 points per game, 8 points allowed. So this team has done good defensively, but only averaging 22 points so far on offense this season. 242 pass yards a game, 99 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 112 for passing, 144 for rushing. So that defense, in the passing defense, they've been especially good so far statistically. But obviously on offense, they've been poor so far. Haynes King has been the primary starting quarterback for this team, and 460 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's just a bit inconsistent and definitely has some room to get better. And I feel like for Haynes King, he kind of caps the ceiling on this team as long as he's a mediocre quarterback. But we'll see how much he improves over the course of the season. Your recent matchups, the past 2 games for both these teams, Miami beat Southern Miss 30-7, also beat Bethune-Cookman 70-13. So they've taken care of both their opponents. And as for Texas A&M, lost App State 14-17. Once again, just a brutal loss. One of the bigger upsets that I can remember in recent history. And then they beat Sam Houston State 31-0 in Week 1. So key points for this one: Miami 2-0. Tyler Van Dyke, he shows some promise. We haven't seen him too much so far this season, but he's definitely a talented quarterback, so I'm looking forward to seeing him in this matchup going up against a good opponent. And this is, once again, really the first big test for both these teams. Of course, Texas A&M did take a brutal loss, but this is the best opponent both teams have played so far this season. So it's definitely this game's going to tell a lot about both these teams here. Miami defensively, they've been strong for sure. Definitely a strong defensive team. Honestly, both teams are pretty strong on defense. The main difference is Miami on offense has been better for sure. And quite honestly, for Miami here, being ranked 13th in the nation with the talent that they have, they could become a college football playoff dark horse with a win here. This team could very well jump into the top 10 if they can get a win in this matchup. And with an ACC schedule, if they can keep stringing wins together, this Hurricanes team could really prove to be a real team this season. Texas A&M brutal loss to App State last week. Obviously, they've got the talent to be a national contender, and that's kind of the thing. That's the thing about Texas A&M is this team is so talented. They got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. It's just so far they've, in particular Week 2, they just disappointed a ton and didn't really live up to that. And this game in particular is going to tell a lot about the Aggies here. Texas A&M is favored in this matchup. They're favored by 6 according to the spread. This is a time for them to get back in the winning column and get a good win on the resume. And if they can't do so here, the Aggies are likely bound for a disappointing season. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for Miami and Texas A&M, one of the big matchups coming up here in week 3. I'm going Texas A&M 24-17, so I do have the Aggies getting the win in the end here. This is a very close matchup, a very competitive matchup, and I expect it to be a very close one, back and forth the entire way. But Texas A&M pulls it out in the end, and they get redemption, or at least some redemption, off of their, once again, just a brutal loss last week. This is also a crucial game for Texas A&M if they still want to have at least a somewhat successful season. And for Miami, of course, being in a situation where this could be a huge win to add to their resume if they want to be a potential dark horse contender. It's obviously a huge game for them. But in the end, Texas A&M is the better team, I think, 24-17, especially with them being at home in a nighttime setting. We saw last year, when Texas A&M came off of a disappointing loss, and guess what happened? The next week they beat Alabama in a night game at home, which was extremely unexpected. So, nonetheless, I'm going to go Texas A&M here. I do think the Aggies bounce back and get a good win up here in week 3. Probability 55% towards Texas A&M, so I do think it's fairly close one. Could go either way for sure. Over-under's 48.5. I'll take the under for this one for sure. I'm pretty confident picking the under in this matchup, especially if it stays at 48.5. I think both defenses in the end control this game, and especially if Texas A&M wins. I don't think Texas A&M wins and scores a lot of points in this game. I think they can win this game with 24 for sure, especially if their defense has a great game. But in the end, I do have A&M covering the spread as well, which is currently 6 points towards them. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.